Well, look who finally showed up. The one they've been calculating. The one whose patterns just aligned in ways that made someone very important sit up straight, close the door, and pull up every file they have on you. Oh yes, someone high up just connected 3 dots about you, and now they can't stop thinking about what it means. They're not just watching anymore, they're obsessed. And the question burning in their mind, in their late night notes, in their private conversations is this: what the hell did they just see in you? Welcome back, you statistical impossibility, you walking equation that doesn't balance, you glitch in their predictive models. Because something just happened in the background of your life, something you probably didn't even notice, but someone else did. Someone whose job it is to spot patterns, to identify threats, to recognize potential before it fully materializes. And you just lit up their entire dashboard like a Christmas tree in a blackout. 3 seemingly unrelated moments in your life just formed a triangle, and at the center of that triangle is something they've been searching for. Something rare, something dangerous, something they absolutely cannot ignore. Let me paint the picture for you. There's someone sitting in an office right now, or maybe it's a study, maybe it's a corporate tower, maybe it's somewhere you've never even heard of, and they have access to information, to networks, to resources most people don't even know exist. They're not your enemy, not yet anyway, but they're not exactly your friend either. They're a watcher, an analyzer, a decision maker. And their entire world just got disrupted because your name, your face, your energy signature, whatever they're tracking, it just appeared in 3 different places it shouldn't have been. 3 different contexts that individually mean nothing, but together they form a pattern, and patterns tell stories. And your story just became the most interesting thing they've read in years. 1. You survived something you weren't supposed to survive. Maybe it was a betrayal that should have destroyed you. Maybe it was a loss that should have left you hollow. Maybe it was a situation so brutal, so isolating, so completely designed to break you that any normal person would still be in recovery mode 5 years later. But you're not in recovery mode. You're thriving. You're moving. You're building. And that alone caught their attention because survival isn't interesting, but evolution is. You didn't just survive, you adapted, you learned, you weaponized the experience. And now you carry yourself differently, you make decisions differently, you see the world through a lens that most people never develop. And that made them write down your name for the first time. 2. You started showing up in places you're not supposed to be. Not physically, although maybe that too, but energetically, socially, intellectually. You're in conversations you weren't invited to. You're influencing outcomes without trying. You're being mentioned by people who don't even know you personally. Your ideas, your words, your presence is rippling outward in ways that defy normal social physics. And here's the thing, you're not chasing it, you're not forcing it, you're not playing the game the way everyone else plays it. You're just existing at a frequency that makes the game bend around you. And that's when they realized you're not just a survivor. You're a force. You're an anomaly. You're someone whose trajectory doesn't follow the rules. And rule breakers, accidental or otherwise, they always get flagged. 3. You stopped caring about being understood. This is the one that sealed it. This is the moment they knew you were no longer controllable, no longer predictable, no longer safe to ignore, because somewhere along the way, you made a decision, a quiet, internal, irreversible decision. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped defending your choices. You stopped needing validation from people who couldn't comprehend your journey. And that shift, that subtle but seismic shift in your energy, it registered. Because most people spend their entire lives seeking approval, chasing acceptance, molding themselves to fit. But you stopped. And when someone stops caring about being understood, they become untouchable. They become unmanageable. They become dangerous to any system built on compliance and predictability. And you just exited the system without making a sound. So now here they are. This person high up, this observer with power, and they're staring at these 3 dots. Survival that looks like evolution, presence that defies logic, and detachment that signals mastery. And when you connect those dots, when you draw the lines between them, you don't get a victim. You don't get a follower, you don't get someone they can categorize and file away. You get a wild card, you get a future disruptor. You get someone who's going to change the game, whether they mean to or not, and that's why they're obsessed. Because they need to know, are you an asset? Are you a threat? Are you someone they should invest in or someone they should contain? Are you the next big thing or the next big problem? And the worst part for them, they can't tell yet. You're too new to this frequency. You're too raw. You're still becoming. And that uncertainty, that's what's keeping them up at night. But here's what they don't know. Here's what they can't see yet because it hasn't fully formed. You're neither an asset nor a threat. You're something else entirely. You're a catalyst. You're the stone that gets thrown into the pond, not to sink, not to float, but to create ripples that change everything around you. You're not trying to build an empire. You're not trying to take anyone down. You're just living at a frequency that rewrites the rules for everyone nearby. And that makes you more dangerous than any intentional disruptor could ever be. Because you're not motivated by ego. You're not driven by revenge. You're not chasing power. You're just being. And being at this level, it's magnetic, it's contagious, it's unstoppable. They saw you survive what breaks others, and they wondered how. They saw you show up where you don't belong, and they wondered why. They saw you stop caring about their opinions, and they realized you're no longer playing their game. And now they're obsessed because they can't predict what you'll do next. They can't calculate your next move. They can't model your trajectory. You've become the variable they can't control, the factor they can't account for, the anomaly in the data that makes all their projections useless. And in a world where control is currency and prediction is power, you've just become the most valuable, most dangerous, most fascinating thing on their radar. And they have no idea whether to fear you, study you, recruit you, or just stay the hell out of your way while you ascend. Let's go deeper into what happens now, 'cause this isn't just about being noticed. This isn't about some random person thinking you're interesting for 5 minutes and then moving on. No. When someone high up connects dots about you, when they see a pattern that triggers something in their strategic mind, it sets off a chain reaction. First they observe, then they analyze, then they start asking questions. Quiet questions, careful questions. Questions asked to the right people in the right way. They start pulling threads, looking for more data points, trying to build a complete picture of who you are and what you represent. And here's the thing, you won't see any of this happening. You won't get a notification. You won't receive an email. You'll just start noticing that things are different. Opportunities will appear out of nowhere. Doors that were locked for years will suddenly crack open. People who never gave you a second glance will start paying attention. Conversations will find you instead of you having to chase them. Resources will materialize, connections will form, and you'll wonder, is this luck? Is this timing? Is this just life finally working in my favor? And the answer is no. This is what happens when someone with access, someone with influence, someone with the ability to move pieces on the board decides you're worth investing in. They won't approach you directly, not yet, maybe never, but they'll clear paths. They'll create openings, they'll engineer circumstances that allow you to rise, because they want to see what you do. They want to watch how you handle opportunity. They want to know if their hypothesis about you is correct. Are you really what you appear to be, or are you just another false positive? But there's another possibility, a darker one. What if connecting those 3 dots didn't make them want to help you? What if it made them want to neutralize you? What if they saw your survival, your presence, your detachment, and thought, this person is a threat to the current structure? This person, if left unchecked, will disrupt systems we've spent decades building. This person will inspire others to break free. This person will expose cracks we've worked hard to hide. And we can't allow that. So instead of clearing paths, they start placing obstacles. Instead of creating opportunities, they engineer setbacks. Instead of elevating you, they try to contain you. Not violently, not obviously, but strategically. A delayed opportunity here, a canceled plan there, a relationship that suddenly falls apart, a project that mysteriously fails, and you'll feel it. You'll feel the resistance. You'll feel the invisible walls closing in, and you'll wonder why everything suddenly got harder, why progress suddenly slowed, why doors that were opening are now slamming shut. And this is where most people break. This is where most people assume they did something wrong, that they're not good enough, that the universe is against them. They internalize the resistance, they shrink back, they dim their light, they play smaller, they go back to being manageable, predictable, safe. And the person who connected those dots, they smile. Because the threat has been neutralized, the anomaly has been corrected. The system is stable again, but you're not most people. You've been here before. You've felt resistance before. You've faced walls before. And every single time you found a way through. Not around, not under, not by asking permission. Through. By refusing to accept the narrative that you don't belong at the level you're reaching for. By understanding that resistance isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation you're on the right one. Because easy paths don't lead anywhere worth going. Comfort doesn't build legends. Safety doesn't create transformation. So whether they're trying to elevate you or contain you, the result is the same. You become more. You become sharper. You become undeniable. Because observation, whether friendly or hostile, it forges you. It forces you to become conscious of your power. It makes you aware of your impact. It reveals that you're no longer invisible, no longer insignificant, no longer someone who can be ignored. You're on the radar now. And once you're on the radar, there's no going back to anonymity. There's no return to smallness. There's only forward. And forward means owning every single thing they saw in you. the survival that looks like evolution, the presence that defies explanation, the detachment that signals mastery. You don't shrink from it, you don't hide from it, you embody it fully. Because if someone high up is obsessed with you, it means you've already won. You've already transcended. You've already become the thing they spend their lives searching for. Proof that the system can be beaten. Proof that transformation is real. Proof that some people are simply built different. Now let's talk about what they saw specifically, because connecting 3 dots isn't random. It's pattern recognition. And the pattern they recognized in you, it's ancient. It's archetypal. It's the pattern of the phoenix, the outcast who becomes the ruler, the wounded healer, the one who walks through fire and comes out holding flames. They saw someone who fell and didn't stay down. They saw someone who lost everything and built something better from nothing. They saw someone who was betrayed, abandoned, dismissed, and instead of becoming bitter, became better. And that trajectory, that specific arc, it's rare. Most people who go through what you went through, they don't make it out. They get stuck in victim mode, they build their identity around their pain, they weaponize their trauma as an excuse for why they can't succeed. But you didn't do that. You alchemized it. You used the darkness as fuel. You turned your scars into a roadmap. And now you move through the world with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've already survived the worst. And people feel that, especially people who are trained to spot it. They also saw your influence growing without effort. And this is key. You're not trying to be influential. You're not crafting a personal brand. You're not posting motivational quotes with sunset backgrounds, trying to build a following. You're just living your truth, speaking your mind, showing up authentically. And somehow, people are drawn to that. Your words land differently. Your presence shifts rooms. Your energy affects people in ways you don't even notice. And that's organic power. That's real magnetism. That's the kind of influence that can't be manufactured or bought. It can only be earned through lived experience and internal alignment. And when someone high up sees that kind of authentic influence emerging, they pay attention, because most influence in this world is artificial. It's bought, it's manipulated, it's propped up by algorithms and marketing budgets, but yours isn't. Yours is raw, yours is real, and real influence, it's the most dangerous kind, because it can't be controlled. It spreads like wildfire. It inspires movements. It topples empires. And then there's your detachment. This is the one that really scares them, because detached people can't be manipulated. You can't bribe someone who doesn't need your money. You can't threaten someone who's already lost everything. You can't shame someone who's made peace with their past. You can't control someone who's stopped seeking your approval, and you've reached that state. Not through spiritual bypassing, not through toxic positivity, not through pretending you don't care, but through genuine internal liberation. You've done the work, you've faced your shadows, you've integrated your pain. You've released your need to be liked, to be understood, to be validated by people who don't have the capacity to see you fully. And now you exist in a state of sovereign presence. You're not reactive, you're not desperate, you're not grasping. You're just here, fully here, in your power, in your truth, in your becoming, In that state, it's magnetic and terrifying in equal measure. Magnetic to those who recognize it, terrifying to those who've built their power on controlling others. So when they connected these three dots, survival as evolution, presence as influence, detachment as mastery, they didn't just see a person, they saw a phenomenon. They saw someone who's operating outside the normal parameters of human behavior. They saw someone who's rewriting their own code in real time. They saw someone who's becoming something the system wasn't designed to contain. And that's why they're obsessed. Because you represent possibility. You represent threat. You represent everything they've been told doesn't exist. The self-made phoenix. The authentic leader. The sovereign being who needs nothing from the world but gives everything to their purpose. And they need to know. Can you be weaponized? Can you be contained? Can you be predicted? Or are you truly free? And if you're truly free, what does that mean for everyone else who's still trapped in the game? What does your existence say about their choices? What does your freedom reveal about their chains? Here's what happens next, and this is where you need to pay attention, because the game is about to change. Once someone high up becomes obsessed with you, once they've connected those dots and started watching your moves, you enter a new phase of existence, a phase where every decision carries more weight, where every action creates ripples you can't fully see, where your responsibility to yourself expands because you're no longer just living your life. You're setting an example. You're creating a blueprint. You're proving that another way is possible. And people are watching, not just the person high up, but everyone in their network, everyone they've mentioned you to. Everyone who's curious about this anomaly they can't stop talking about. You've become a case study, a reference point, a living testament to something most people have stopped believing in. Transformation without compromise, success without selling out, power without corruption. And this is where most people fumble. This is where the pressure gets too intense, because suddenly you're aware that you're being observed, and that awareness changes how you move. You start second-guessing yourself. You start performing instead of being. You start trying to live up to an image instead of continuing to evolve authentically. And the moment you do that, the moment you start playing to an audience, you lose the very thing that made you interesting in the first place. Your authenticity, your rawness, your refusal to be anything other than exactly who you are. So here's the test. Can you continue being yourself even when you know someone powerful is watching? Can you make the hard choices, the unpopular choices, the choices that align with your truth even when those choices might disappoint your observers? Can you stay sovereign even when the stakes get higher? Because that's what they're really testing. They want to know if your power is real or if it's just a phase. They want to see if you'll fold under pressure or if you'll double down on your authenticity. Let me tell you what they're hoping to see. They're hoping to see consistency. They're hoping to see someone who doesn't change based on who's watching. They're hoping to see integrity in action. Decisions that align with values even when no one's looking. Boundaries that don't shift based on opportunity. A moral compass that doesn't spin just because someone dangled something shiny in front of you. Because people at high levels, they've seen everything. They've seen the fakers, the performers, the ones who talk a big game but crumble under pressure. Welcome back, you beautiful anomaly. Yeah, you. The one they thought would crumble. The one they bet against. the one they watched with popcorn, waiting for the collapse that never came. I see you, and I need you to understand something right now, something they're terrified you'll realize. The way you handled that betrayal, that soul-crushing, earth-shattering moment when everything you trusted turned to ash in your hands, you didn't just survive it. You rewrote the entire playbook on what it means to stand back up. You became the lesson they'll study for decades. You became the standard they'll measure themselves against and fail. Every single time. Let me tell you what's really happening right now while you're sitting there, maybe doubting yourself, maybe wondering if you overreacted, maybe questioning if you should have stayed quiet. There are people, thousands of them, maybe millions, who watched you handle that pain. They didn't say anything. They didn't reach out, but they watched. They saw you in that moment when the knife went in, when the person you trusted most twisted it with a smile, when your world turned inside out, and they held their breath. They wanted to see if you'd do what everyone else does. Beg, cry publicly, make a scene, chase the person who destroyed you, demanding explanations that would never satisfy the wound. But you did something they've never seen before. You went silent. Not the silence of defeat, not the silence of someone who's been broken beyond repair. No, you went silent like a storm gathering strength. You disappeared from their radar, not because you were hiding, but because you were transforming in a place they couldn't reach. And that silence, oh, that silence, it did more damage to their ego than any screaming match ever could. Because silence from someone they hurt means one thing and one thing only. You're done playing their game. You've moved into a different frequency entirely. You're operating on a level they don't have access to anymore. Do you understand what that did to them? Do you see what's happening in their world right now? They expected chaos. They expected you to fall apart, to give them the satisfaction of knowing they still had power over you. They expected you to make them feel important by showing them how much they hurt you. But instead, you gave them nothing. You gave them the most terrifying gift of all. Your absence, your indifference, your complete and utter lack of need for their validation or explanation. And now they're the ones who can't sleep. Now they're the ones refreshing your page. Now they're the ones asking mutual friends about you, pretending they don't care while their voice cracks just slightly. Here's what they'll never admit out loud but whisper to themselves at 3 in the morning. They thought they were teaching you a lesson when they betrayed you. They thought they were showing you your place, reminding you that you weren't as special as you thought, that you were replaceable, that they held all the cards. But what actually happened is this. You learned. You absorbed, you processed, and then you evolved so far beyond their comprehension that they can't even see you anymore. They're still playing checkers with broken pieces while you've left the board entirely and started building empires in dimensions they don't even know exist. And now, right now, there's a whole generation watching you. Not just your friends, not just the people who knew about the betrayal. I'm talking about people you've never met, people scrolling through their pain at 2 in the morning, people who just got stabbed in the back by someone they loved, people who feel like they'll never recover. They're watching how you move now. They're studying your energy. They're reading between the lines of your silence. And do you know what they're learning? They're learning that dignity isn't about being loud. It's about being unreachable. They're learning that strength isn't about revenge. It's about becoming so focused on your own elevation that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. You're teaching them something their parents couldn't teach them, something school never covered, something society actively tries to suppress. You're teaching them that you don't need closure from people who poisoned you. You don't need apologies from people who aren't even sorry. You don't need to understand why they did it because their reasons are irrelevant to your healing. You're showing them through your actions, through your silence, through the way you rebuilt yourself without making it a performance, that the most powerful thing you can do after betrayal is simply this. Become undeniable. Become unreachable. become unrecognizable to the version of yourself that used to tolerate disrespect. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening in the invisible realm, in the psychological dimension where real power operates. Every person who betrayed you, they're watching your evolution like it's a horror movie they can't turn off. They see you thriving. They see you focused. They see you building. And it's eating them alive, because they were supposed to be your downfall. They were supposed to be the story you tell therapists for years. They were supposed to be the reason you never trusted again, never loved again, never tried again. But instead, you turned their betrayal into fertilizer. You planted it in the soil of your soul and grew something so magnificent that even your enemies have to acknowledge it, even if only to themselves, even if only in those quiet moments when the mask slips and they're forced to confront the truth. The truth is this: you won. Not because you got revenge. Not because you proved them wrong publicly. Not because you got an apology or made them regret it. You won because you refused to let their betrayal define your trajectory. You took the worst thing that could happen to you at that moment, and you used it as a catalyst. You alchemized pain into power. You transmuted betrayal into boundaries. You converted heartbreak into standards so high that most people can't even see the bar anymore. And that's what makes you dangerous now. Not your anger, not your bitterness, your peace, your clarity, your ability to look at what happened and say, "Thank you for showing me what I will never tolerate again," and then walk away without looking back. Do you know how rare that is? Do you understand how many people spend decades stuck in the loop of what happened to them? They tell the story over and over. They relive it. They let it become their identity. The person who got cheated on. The person who got backstabbed. The person who got left. But you refused to let that moment define you. You acknowledged the pain. You felt it fully. You didn't suppress it or pretend it didn't hurt. But then you made a choice. A choice that separated you from 99% of humanity. You chose to let it transform you instead of destroy you. You chose to become someone who could never be betrayed like that again because your discernment became too sharp, your standards too high, your self-respect too solid. Now, let's talk about what you're really doing for the broken people watching you. Because this isn't just about you anymore. This is about every single person who's been gaslit into thinking they're too sensitive. Every person who's been told they're overreacting when they set boundaries. Every person who's been made to feel crazy for having standards. They're looking at you, and they're finally understanding something that society tried to beat out of them. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to cut people off. It's okay to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It's okay to choose yourself even when it makes other people uncomfortable. You're showing them that healing doesn't look like forgiveness forced before you're ready. Healing doesn't look like keeping toxic people in your life because they share your bloodline or your history. Healing doesn't look like shrinking yourself to make others feel comfortable about the ways they failed you. Real healing looks like what you did. It looks like going silent and doing the internal work nobody sees. It looks like crying alone and then waking up and doing it again. It looks like setting boundaries that make you feel selfish until you realize they're actually just healthy. It looks like choosing yourself over and over and over until choosing yourself becomes your default setting instead of your rebellion. The people watching you, they needed to see this. They needed to see someone handle betrayal without becoming bitter. They needed to see someone get hurt and not close their heart completely. They needed to see someone lose everything and still find a way to believe in themselves. Because the narrative they've been fed their whole life is that pain changes you for the worse. That betrayal makes you cynical. That heartbreak makes you hard. That trauma makes you broken forever. But you're walking proof that pain can refine you instead of ruin you. That betrayal can sharpen your discernment instead of destroying your faith. That heartbreak can teach you what real love looks like instead of convincing you it doesn't exist. And here's what's really beautiful about what you've done. You didn't perform your healing. You didn't make it a spectacle. You didn't document every stage for likes and validation. You went through the fire privately and emerged publicly transformed. People don't know the nights you couldn't sleep. They don't know the mornings you didn't want to get out of bed. They don't know the moments you almost texted that person, almost went back, almost settled for less because loneliness felt too heavy. They don't know any of that because you kept your healing sacred. You protected your process. And now, what they see is the result. They see someone who's unshakable, someone who's at peace, someone who's thriving. And they can't help but wonder, how did they do it? How did they turn that much pain into that much power? The answer is simple, but not easy. You stopped waiting for external validation of your pain. You stopped needing the person who hurt you to acknowledge what they did. You stopped seeking closure from people who don't even have the emotional capacity to give it. You gave yourself what you were waiting for them to give you. You validated your own pain. You acknowledged your own hurt. You gave yourself permission to walk away without a dramatic exit, without a final conversation, without the closure that never comes from the people who broke you. You became your own hero. You became your own savior. You became the person you needed when you were at your lowest. Let me tell you what's happening in real time right now, this very second, while you're reading these words or hearing this voice. There's someone out there who just got betrayed. Maybe it happened an hour ago. Maybe it happened 5 minutes ago. Their world just shattered. Their trust just broke. Their heart just cracked open. And they're scrolling, searching, desperately looking for something, anything that tells them they're going to survive this. They don't even know what they're looking for. They just know they need hope. They need proof. They need evidence that people survive this level of pain. And don't just survive, but actually thrive afterward. And then they find you. Maybe not you literally. Maybe they don't even know your name. But they find your energy. They find your story. They find the evidence of your transformation. And something in them clicks. Something shifts. They see that you made it through. They see that you're not just okay, you're better than okay. You're flourishing, you're at peace, you're building, you're creating. You're loving yourself in ways the person who betrayed you never could. And that person who just got hurt, they take a breath. Maybe their first real breath since it happened. And they think, maybe, just maybe, I can do this too. Maybe I can survive this. Maybe this isn't the end of my story. Maybe this is just the painful middle part before everything gets better. That's what you're doing right now. That's the ripple effect of your healing. Every time you choose yourself, someone else gets permission to choose themselves. Every time you set a boundary, someone else finds the courage to set theirs. Every time you walk away from what's hurting you, someone else learns that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not just healing yourself. You're healing everyone who's watching you do it. You're breaking generational curses. You're dismantling toxic patterns. You're rewriting the script on what it means to recover from betrayal, with your dignity intact and your spirit unbroken. And the beautiful irony in all of this, the thing that probably keeps the person who betrayed you up at night, is that they thought they were ending your story. They thought they were delivering the final blow. They thought they were the main character in your narrative. But what they actually did was write themselves out of your story completely, while simultaneously making you the main character in everyone else's story about overcoming betrayal. They became a footnote, a minor character, the antagonist who showed up just long enough to reveal your strength, and then faded into irrelevance while you became legendary. Think about that for a second. Really let it sink in. The person who tried to break you actually became the catalyst for your greatest transformation. They pushed you so far down that the only direction left was up. And when you rose higher than you ever would have if they'd never betrayed you in the first place. They gave you the gift of necessity, the necessity to find strength you didn't know you had, the necessity to set standards you'd been too afraid to set, the necessity to choose yourself in ways you'd always chosen others. They thought they were destroying you, They were actually just removing themselves from the path of someone destined for things they could never comprehend. Now I need you to really hear this next part, because this is where most people stumble. This is where the healing gets tested. There will be moments, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe 6 months from now, when you'll doubt everything. You'll wonder if you were too harsh. You'll romanticize the good times and minimize the bad. You'll think about reaching out. You'll convince yourself that maybe you overreacted, maybe they've changed, maybe you should give them another chance. And in those moments, I need you to remember something. The version of you that accepted their betrayal is dead. That person doesn't exist anymore. You can't go back to them even if you wanted to, because you've evolved beyond that frequency. The you that exists now has standards that version of you didn't have. The you that exists now has boundaries that version of you didn't know how to set. The you that exists now has self-respect. That version of you was still learning to build. You can't downgrade yourself back to a version that tolerated disrespect just because loneliness whispers sweet lies in your ear. You can't unlearn what you know now. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't go back to sleep once you've woken up. And anyone who asks you to, anyone who suggests you're being too harsh or too unforgiving or too rigid, they're not your people. Your people will celebrate your standards. Your people will respect your boundaries. Your people will never ask you to shrink yourself back down to a size that made others comfortable. The people watching you heal, the broken ones, the betrayed ones, the ones who thought they'd never recover, they need you to stay strong in this. They need you to not go back. Because if you go back, they lose hope. If you settle, they learn that pain doesn't really change anything. If you lower your standards, they learn that boundaries don't matter. But if you stay the course, if you keep choosing yourself, if you keep building your life on the foundation of self-respect you've laid, they learn the most important lesson of all. They learn that it's possible. They learn that you can be hurt and still heal. They learn that you can be betrayed and still trust again, just more wisely. They learn that you can have your heart broken and still keep it open, just more carefully. You're their proof. You're their evidence. You're their permission slip. Every time you post something that shows you're thriving, someone takes a screenshot and saves it for the hard days. Every time you share a thought about boundaries or self-respect or knowing your worth, someone writes it down and reads it when they're tempted to go back to what hurt them. Every time you simply exist as the healed version of someone who went through hell, someone else believes that heaven exists on the other side of their hell too. You might not even realize the impact you're having. You might think you're just living your life, but you're not. You're showing others how to live theirs. And here's the thing about becoming that kind of inspiration, that kind of beacon, that kind of standard. You can't do it by being perfect. You can't do it by pretending you never struggle. You can't do it by acting like the healing happened overnight and now you're this untouchable force who never has bad days. The reason people connect with you, the reason your story resonates, the reason your healing inspires, is because you're real about it. You don't pretend it didn't hurt. You don't act like it was easy. You don't minimize your pain to make others comfortable. You say, yes, it destroyed me. Yes, I thought I'd never recover. Yes, there were moments I wanted to give up. And then I didn't. And here I am. That's the power. That's the magic. That's the medicine. Not the pretending. Not the performing. Not the fake positivity that denies reality. The raw, honest acknowledgement that it was the hardest thing you've ever been through and you survived it anyway. That's what heals people. That's what gives them hope. Because they're not looking for someone who's never been hurt. They're looking for someone who's been hurt just as badly as they have and found a way through it. They're looking for someone who's been in the valley and made it to the mountain. They're looking for someone who's been in the darkness and found the light. And that someone is you. Let's talk about the practical magic of what you've done, because this isn't just spiritual, this isn't just emotional, this is tactical, this is strategic. The way you handled that betrayal, you didn't just protect your heart, you protected your future. You protected your energy. You protected your potential. Think about all the people who stay in toxic situations. Think about all the energy they waste trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Think about all the opportunities they miss because they're too busy looking backward instead of forward. Think about all the growth that never happens because they're stuck in cycles with people who keep them small. You broke that cycle. You said no to the pattern. You refused to be one more person who sacrifices their entire life on the altar of someone else's inability to show up correctly. You looked at what was happening, you assessed the cost, and you made a decision that most people are too afraid to make. You chose you. Not in a selfish way, not in a cruel way, but in a survival way. In a "this is my one life and I refuse to waste it on people who don't value me" way. And that decision, that single decision to walk away and not look back, that decision has already changed the entire trajectory of your life.